and turns on Obamacare replacement.
It's like a soap opera.
And it took I would say, a very positive turn yesterday on two fronts. One is Gary Cohn, the president's economic council director, in introducing the president's tax relief plan, included in there a repeal of the 3.8% Obamacare tax. In addition to that, you had the Freedom Caucus yesterday release a statement. While the revised version of Obamacare replacement still does not fully repeal Obamacare, we are prepared to support it to keep our promise to the American people to lower health care costs.
Okay.
Now, there's the question is, does the Tuesday group, to some of the more moderate members of the caucus, are they still on board with the amended 2.0 version? I think they're going to be. There was some involvement from Tuesday group members on this. That's pending. But all of a sudden, it looks like we're going to, in my opinion, at least advance the flag on replacing Obamacare and reducing health care costs and moving to the next phase of regulatory relief. And I have actually considerable faith in Dr. Tom Price at HHS that he will unwind the administrative state part of Obamacare. So this is good news for health insurance and, by extension, health care in America, isn't it? We put that question to our friend Michael Tanner, who, of course, is a well-known and respected senior fellow for the Cato Institute. He's also the author of the book Going for Broke, Deficits, Debt, and the Entitlement Crisis, and he is an expert in this space, has written extensively on the topic. Michael, thanks so much for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you.
So do you agree with my perspective in answering the question, if, with the Freedom Caucus on board, if 2.0 does move out of the House and to the Senate and makes its way to the president's desk in some approximation of the form that it would come out of the House, that this constitutes substantial improvement in the health insurance landscape in America?
Well, I think this new version of it is better than the old version, and it certainly is moving in the right direction. I should say that almost anything that comes out of the Senate is going to look radically different than whatever passes the House. In many ways, the House should go ahead and pass something and send it over, because the Senate's going to strip it down and write its own bill anyway. It will come back to the House eventually for another vote, and that's where the Freedom Caucus or the moderates should begin to draw their lines in the sand. At this point, they should simply be trying to move the process forward.
Well, what's in the revised version that the Freedom Caucus likes?
Well, what they've done is give the states the power to waive some of the mandatory minimum benefit requirements and some of the insurance regulations that are in Obamacare. Essentially, the moderates wanted to retain those policies, particularly the protection for people with pre-existing conditions. And the Freedom Caucus wanted to get rid of them. And what they've done as a compromise is allow the states to submit waiver requests to HHS to get rid of those requirements, providing they have some other mechanism to protect people with those pre-existing conditions. That will go a long way towards dealing with the adverse selection problem, dealing with some of the problems that are destabilizing the insurance market, and lowering premium costs, which, of course, is one of the most important things that reform can do.
So, setting aside the point that you made, which is an important one, and I concede about what comes out of the Senate will look different, with what the Freedom Caucus is signing on to, and their objection to the first version was it didn't do enough to lower premiums immediately. Are they right that this has a much better chance, a much greater likelihood that people will see real relief in their premiums in the near term if this were to be signed into law?
Well, it will largely depend on the state. On states that are willing to take advantage of these waiver requests that could significantly reduce premiums. But a lot of Democratic-controlled states, like Illinois, for example, are probably going to retain these protections, and that's going to keep insurance prices high and keep the insurance market unstable. And so we're sort of localizing the problems rather, we're now there on the national level. We're going to shift them down to a state and local level, but we're not necessarily solving the problems.
So do these waiver requests include maternity leave?
They would. They could indeed. Some of the details have not been put on paper yet, but essentially the entire set of essential minimum benefits that are on under Obamacare could be waived. There may make a couple of exceptions for here and there, but that's what it looks like as of right now.
What's your reaction to as part of Trump's tax relief plan? You can give us a general reaction to it, but in addition to that, the specific rollback of the Obamacare tax.
Well, the Obamacare tax absolutely needed to be rolled back. And that was always part of the plan. The problem is, of course, we're taking revenue out of the situation, and the Trump administration still has not embraced spending cuts to offset that. So we've got a potential increase in the deficit. In terms of the Trump tax plan altogether, the business tax cut, of course, is long overdue. This will go a long way towards making American businesses more competitive and helping to bring back some of the money that's parked overseas. There's some very good ideas on the domestic side as well in terms of tax simplification, lowering rates while getting rid of some of the loopholes that are in the current code. The question is largely going to be in the details. This was basically a one-page outline. The Treasury Department still hasn't even developed some of the details. There's no legislation at this point. So we're basically talking almost at the campaign promise level. It's a good promise, but that's all it is at this point.
Although it'd be nice. Look, I'd take a one page to replace 80,000 pages.
Well, you're absolutely right, but we don't know, for example, what deductions will be cut and what ones will be retained. They said, for example, they're going to retain the mortgage interest deduction, which I think is one of the more regressive ones. They're going to retain the charitable deduction, which is probably a good thing.
Right.
Beyond that, we don't know yet. We don't know what they're going to do about a border adjustment tax. They said that that's being left up to the negotiators. That's a huge question. It's a $30 billion a year hit to American consumers if that's included. So there's still a lot of details to be worked out.
And they say they're going from 7 brackets to 3. So what brackets are being eliminated?
Essentially, the brackets are going to be 10, 25, and 35, I believe.
Right.
But we don't know what income they'll apply to. That hasn't been worked out yet either.
All right. He is Michael Tanner, Senior Fellow for the Cato Institute, author of the book Going for Broke, Deficits, Debt, and the Entitlement Crisis. Michael Tanner, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Anytime.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.